This is interesting. I just came across this right now. Now, don't we always hear this thing about how, single mothers are to blame, and they talk about the single mother to prison pipeline for young males, young black males specifically, right? Talk about how all these men that are in prison that came from single mothers, which isn't true, but I'm not all of them, but a lot of them do, I'm sure. And they love to talk about how the outcomes of the children are so much better when they're with the fathers versus the mothers, and all these things, right? And I'm like, and I instantly tell them, right? I'm like, reflexively, I'm like, yeah, that is because of resources. That's because of money, right? Money brings resources. No. I'm like, what do you think it is? Like the same men that will try to paint that narrative. If you ask them, which I've done, if you ask them, well, who is more nurturing, men or women, mothers or fathers? And they would be like, oh, mothers. So, so let me get this right. The same woman, when she's with you, you expect her to raise your kids, right? You expect her to do the vast majority of the nurturing and the child rearing. All of a sudden, when you're not there, she becomes a less effective parent than you are. Then why wouldn't you be the nurturing, a child rearing parent in the relationship? If she's so bad without you, then why is she good with you? Oh, it's because you make money. You bring an extra paycheck to the table. Not because of you necessarily, to be honest with you, not because of you, because a lot of y'all don't participate enough as it is. It ends up canceling each other out, to be honest with you, because if she didn't have to worry about you, she would have more time for the kids, right? So yeah, you help her with the kids, but she's also helping you with you. See what I'm saying? So it ends up canceling each other out. That's why single women with children are happier than married women with children, right? Because of the husbands. And the other day, or the other days, this has been over the span of like 4 or 5. This is just what I found in the last 4 or 5 days. I go into lives, and this is the type of stuff that I'm seeing in these lives, right? This is the type of stuff that I'm seeing. This is the narrative being pushed by men, right? Hold on, let me make it bigger for y'all. Okay, so it says, single mothers are messing up the black community, ? Prove me wrong. Which, you're going to see why that is funny. Right? But yeah, that it would be a statement, sir, not a question. Not a question mark wouldn't go there. It would be an exclamation mark or period there, if any, one of the two. You're making a statement and you're asking somebody to prove you wrong. You're not asking a question and asking somebody to prove you wrong, right? But yeah, this is the type of stuff that I'm seeing, right? Men are talking about single mothers are messing up the black community, trying to paint single mothers out to be like the bane of, the black community and the bane of society, right? JD Vance vibes all day long. This is another example. Did single black moms destroy Black America? Right? Okay. It's another one. This is the same week. This is all within the last probably 3 days at the most. No, I saw this one the day before yesterday. So this is the last 2 days. So 48 hours, right? This is what I'm seeing online, right? Y'all always like to come in my lives and tell me how I'm bashing men. I don't never see y'all in these lives telling these men that this shit is stupid. You were raised by your mama, and you over here letting these men talk bad about these women like this. But y'all will come in my live and waste all y'all fucking energy arguing with me. And I never see y'all over here. So it ain't about bashing men, it's about bashing women. You want me to bash women. We know. And another example, this one reads, black kids praise our mother's bad behavior. Our single mother, sorry. Black kids praise our single mother's bad behavior. Interesting. Just no reason. Stupid as fuck. That's just dumb. Like that doesn't even make sense. Like what? What are you talking about? What bad behavior? And what bad behavior are black kids praising, right? From their moms, right? Just dumb, right? Just a way to attack mothers, a way to attack black women, right? Okay. Now we're starting to get the picture, right? So remember what I said. These are the same dudes that blame women for everything, blame single mothers for all the men being in prison, the failings in the community, and so on and so forth, right? And then they'll simultaneously praise the few single fathers that exist out there, right? Like they'll be like, oh yeah, single dads rock and da 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 da, right? And I'm like, yeah, bro, the children do better because they have more money, they have more resources, which proves how important money is. Because a mother, listen to what I'm saying, a mother can be as nurturing as she can be, but she is limited because of how much time she has to spend away from the home to make money, right? She is limited because she doesn't have any support, right? Okay. Single fathers, right? Which they're just single on paper. They have girlfriends, vast majority of the time, that help them with their kids, that help them with the kids. They have mothers that help them with the kids. They have aunties. They have some female figure in their life that is coming in and giving them support. Whereas the women are left to drown on their own because we expect women to be able to handle the duties of raising a child. That's one thing. And also, as men, we want to punish women who are raising children on their own, right? We want to figure out a way to keep them in relationships with us, with the men that don't deserve the women to be in relationships with us because we've been mistreating them and misusing them, right? And using them, I should say. Okay. So why do I say all of this? I come across this video and I'm like, God damn it, wouldn't you know it? Wouldn't you know it?
What is a well-known fact about dyslexia that the general public would not know that you would find to be powerful, moving, or important for them to know?
One of the biggest indicators of why dyslexia is such a problem and such an unnecessary problem. Again, the science exists. We know how to teach dyslexic kids, really all children, how to learn to read, and yet we're not doing it. And so one of the consequences is they did a study in Texas and they looked at incarcerated individuals. A half of people who are incarcerated in Texas are dyslexic. 3/4 of them are functionally illiterate. Because we are not teaching all children to learn to read, if you can't read, how are you going to work? Or what kind of work will you do? It makes sense that they would end up in prison. Not that if you are dyslexic, you would end up in prison. But if we don't help these kids learn to read, what other choice do they have? And even if you look at it as not just a moral issue, think of the money that we are spending. If we found a kid in first grade just to be at risk of having reading struggles, and we intervened very early with really good reading instruction, the rest of their lives, they would be set. They would be contributing members of society. It ends up that at 18 to 25, if we don't teach them to read, many end up in prison. And we're paying, hundreds of thousands of dollars holding them there. Why not go upstream and help them?
Boom. So I don't know about y'all, but this paints a completely different narrative than the ones that the men are trying to paint about single mothers, right? Okay. So first of all, half the men that are in prison are dyslexic, specifically, right? Here's the thing. She just said that the science exists. We can teach kids how to read. Yep, I know that. But what do you think is happening in a situation like in mine, right? In my situation growing up, I grew up in the projects. I grew up in poverty. I didn't feel like it, but I did. My mother worked long hours. She was stressed out a lot, I'm sure. You know what I'm saying? Anxiety, she has been dealing with that her whole life. So anyways, my mom had her own struggles. And a thing that I like, and this is just a side note, a thing that I keep in mind about my mom and specifically my mom, not my dad, but about my mom is my mother, she had me when she was 25 fucking years old. Like my mom was a child, by the time I was in the first grade, my mom was in her early 20s. I mean, early 30s, 32, 33. She was really young, right? She was really young, but she was all alone. 33, responsible for 3 small children, all on her own, right? Now, granted, I didn't have academic struggles or behavioral struggles when I was younger, right? I performed exceedingly well, right? And my mom got ahead of it, right? Even though I was doing fine in school when I was that young, she was like, I'm going to send you to an even better school. Because I went to the local school in the project, by that was in walking distance of the projects that I grew up in, on the poor side of town, right? She said, no. We can do better than this. And she had me bust because my test scores were so high, right? And all of that stuff. When I was in the third grade, she had me bust to, a school clear across town, right? In the most affluent part of town. And that's where I went to elementary school, right? She didn't have the money, but she had the wherewithal. That's my mama. But not everybody can do that. That was in my city. That was my mom. Like, to ask or expect every single mother or whatever caretaker to do this, that's not how the system works. Because even if every parent identifies, they wouldn't have the resources to match. So it would be impossible for everybody to do this. Even if they had the knowledge, it would be impossible, right? So the way that I am to understand this, what this woman is talking about, how all of this ties in together, is this. It is a chain of events, right? They're all linked. You have a woman who makes less money when she has kids. You have men who make more money when they have kids. So a man getting his children, it is a net positive financially for him. He makes the money, he makes up the difference because the jobs pay him more because he has children. The women get the kids, and we know kids are a financial burden, right? But then to exacerbate that situation, women get paid less when they have kids. So now her pay is even less, which means what? She has less access to resources for her children. So if her child is dyslexic, right? That school in that's in walking distance of the projects, they probably won't pick up on that. They're overworked and underpaid themselves. They don't accommodate those schools, because we all know how schools in America are funded. We know it's funded based on the taxes in that zip code. And since I lived in the poorest fucking zip code, our school was grossly underfunded. They lacked resources. If they did it, my mother would have let me stay at that school, right? So this is a tale as old as time in this country. The reason why these men end up in prison is a failure of the system, not a failure of the women. You want to give them some blame? Absolutely. Give them some blame. Yes, they're a parent. They deserve some blame. Some. Not most. Not half. Some blame. Some. I'll give them some blame. Some. I want to be very specific. Yep. Some. Absolutely. Absolutely. A quarter, a third, an eighth. It depends on the situation. Depends on how much they could have done, and then what they didn't do, and how much they did, right? It's about how much you could have done versus how much you did. Like I said, my mom worked long hours, had 2 other small children to attend to. She wasn't the most educated, but she was more educated than most of the women in my community at that time. I'm sure she was. My mother had some college. She went to USC with Orwinto James, aka OJ Simpson, right? So I know that my mom was above average in that way. She made above average money in our community, right? And if you look at me versus my friends, I fared way better than them. I can read way better than them. I have way less mental problems than it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I grew up with my friends. I see how they move now. I'm like, yeah, them niggas. You could just see stuff. You could see, like, when I look back, I'm like, oh yeah, this didn't get addressed, that didn't get addressed, and look how it's playing out now. It's affecting them financially. It's affecting their relationships, right? So this here is all about the failures of the system and the failures of the men who abandoned the children. Because had that man, my father, let's say, had he paid child support, I wouldn't have been at the worst school in the city. But once again, my story is different. My story is different than most of my friends' story. Most of my friends did not get bussed out. They went to the local schools. The vast majority of my friends went to either John Muir or Webster. Those were the two schools closest to my house. Webster is at the back of my projects, and Webster is like the worst fucking school in the district. One of them, or was. I don't know about it anymore, but Webster literally touches the gate of my project. There is a door that opens up for you to go into Webster from my or it did. I think they closed it finally because that was just unsafe to have a project, or grown adults having access to the back of a school was kind of weird. But anyways, they closed it up. But yeah, that's a thing. That's a thing. That's what I'm saying. You guys love to paint this narrative that these women are failing, but in reality, they are maximizing their resources, maximizing them, because they're keeping most little boys out of jail. They're keeping, and a lot of the black girls are going to college. I won't even get into the why aren't the little black girls suffering, like, you know what I mean? What's going on with them? I won't even get into that. But the men, the boys that grow up to be men, they are suffering because they lack resources when they're young. And money leads to resources. And men have more money than women. And the fathers abandon the children financially, leaving the women and the children to struggle. And then when the women and the children struggle, they turn around and blame the women. You guys also, the same men, you guys are also anti-intellectual. Last night I was on a live and this man told me, y'all, he said, I asked him, he said he had a plan. I said, what was your plan? What, for your future? He said he has a plot of land in the South, which means nothing to me. A plot of land in the South means nothing to me. Where is it at? Where is it at? Right? Does it have access to roads? Like, there's so many questions, but I didn't ask. So he says he has a plot of land somewhere. I said, okay. He said, I said, what's your plan? He said, yeah, I want to go down there. And he basically was just talking about like homesteading. Like, that's what I got from it. Like, he was just like, yeah, I'm going to go down there. He wants to be goddamn ballerina farms. Like, that's the impression that I got. He was like, yeah, I want to homeschool my kids. I said, okay, you want to homeschool your kids? He said, yeah. He said, yeah, because anti-intellectualism. Yeah, because, he couldn't even articulate it, but he basically was just saying like, like the school systems are bad for kids and da-da-da-da. And I was like, it's definitely not perfect, right? Definitely not. We could do way better. I'm talking about the failures of the school system right now. But if you are an involved parent coupled with the school system, your kids will do fucking great. So, but he said, yeah, the school systems, they're bad, da-da-da-da. I said, okay. And then, so I ended up asking him, later on, he said he wants to homeschool his kids. I said, oh, okay. I said, sir, what's your highest level of education? Can you guys guess what his highest level of education is? I'll spare you the trouble. High school. If you didn't guess it already, high school. I said, interesting. So you want to be responsible for educating your children when your highest level of education is high school. You don't think you should let people who know how to make learning plans and people who have actual degrees and understand the concept, like, what's the highest math what's the highest level of math can you do? Can you do algebra? I'm sure you struggle with fucking fractions. So what are we talking about? Can you conjugate a verb? Oh, no, because you can barely speak English. He couldn't articulate any of his points. So I was like, no. And this is what he said. He said, no. I'm hoping I can marry a woman that is more educated than I am. That's hypergamy, sir. But for all the men that love screaming about hypergamy, that's hypergamy. But not only did he say that, he expects a woman to have a degree. I said, so you expect a woman who has a degree, who has a higher earning potential than you because you are a high school because you are a high school graduate. You want to put her in the kitchen and put her in the makeshift classroom so she can raise your kids. You want that woman to shrink herself for you? How was that fair to her? Okay, that's beside the point right now. But then, once again, these are the same men that say the women should give the babies to the fathers. Same man, same type of man. He didn't say it in this conversation, but that 100%, this is the same type of man that would say that. Oh yeah, well, who does? Oh yeah, fathers do better with the kids and yada 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 and blah 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 blah. Okay. Okay, I see what's going on here. I see what's happening. Every single fucking time, you guys contradict yourselves. The women are terrible at raising kids, but you need a woman to raise your child. Women are terrible at raising kids, but when you ask men who raised you, it was a mama. Women are terrible at raising kids, but then when you ask the men who is going to raise their kids or who raised their kids, they say, oh, the mother. But then once they're not with you, all of a sudden they become the most terrible parent. I wonder why. Could it be because of money? Could it be because of lack of resources? Could it be? So, gentlemen, point is, give that woman that motherfucking money. Show up for your kids financially. Most of y'all probably shouldn't even show up at all outside of money. But if you can show up and lend that woman a hand, show up, lend that woman a hand, help your babies out. You know what I'm saying? Do what you need to do. Definitely. I urge you to do that. 100%. But if you just can't figure out how to do that, at least make sure your babies grow up in a zip code where they don't go to schools in the shittiest fucking neighborhoods, where they have access to resources, where they're less likely to slip through the cracks in education. And that way you won't be 20-something, 30 years old talking about you want to homeschool your kids because the schools are so terrible. No, nigga, the school you went to was so terrible.